All right, welcome back. We are Game 2004. That's Game Engines 2 and the winter 2026 semester. And it's week 1, part 2 of our broadcast and recording. And what we want to try and do with this second half is do some practice. All right, so I picked the Temple of Poseidon at Sunyo, but you can pick any temple you want. I want you to be, if you don't like it, but I want you to be like as accurate as possible. All right, that's what I mean. So I mean like when it comes to blocking it out. Okay, so we're going to block at a level. The first thing I want to do is talk about the previous thing that we did together, which is this, right? And this was a nice test level. That's all we did. We kind of developed some player systems from last semester. And this is a nice level. We're going to leave it alone. We're going to make a new one. So we're going to go to File, and I'm going to make a new level. And now there's some stuff we can pick. And let me talk about using the empty level this time from scratch. And let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages from that. Okay, so let's do that together. Click Empty Level. Here we go. And if I click Create after I click the empty level, then I'm going to get this, blackness, right? And you're going to be like, Tom, but why? We could have done so much, but now we got this empty level. Well, there's some great things you can do here that we haven't talked about before. And one of the things is, if I go to Window, there is an environment light mixer that I want to talk about right now. Let's go to that, environment light mixer. What it does is it allows you to click all these really quickly and it'll add them into the scene. Watch, click, 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 click. It's a really beautiful thing. So why this? Because it gives you the most minimal kind of way of creating an empty level, and it doesn't have anything else on it whatsoever, just this. One thing that you want to do though is if I scroll down, when I have the mixer still open, I definitely want to kind of click on volumetric fog. So let's click that on. That's kind of an option, right? And that's all the stuff that we want when we start off. So it kind of looks pretty good. One thing that we also want to do here is I want to put these in their own folder. Like right now, it's kind of like untitled, this level. So we're going to kind of right click and go to Move To and create a new folder. And I'm going to call this kind of like, kind of light. That's really what it is, light and sky. So this way we're organized in our outliner as we move and start creating stuff this semester. Okay. So that's the first thing. So again, you can see that if you play the level, right, the guy's going to fall forever, right? And the reason why they're falling forever is because we're still using our game mode from last semester. Okay, now we can disable the game mode and everything else, but I think it's okay to keep because we're going to use our landscape here as we're creating our new world. I want to make a very simple landscape. And this is the next part. So part 1 was we made an empty level and we made a landscape. Let's make a kind of a new thing. So one thing is we're in selection mode right now. And from selection mode, I want to go to landscape mode. Now you guys have done this with Steve before. So it's nothing new. I'm just going to go up here to where I'm supposed to go. Way up here. There we go. Now, thoughts. Should I make a level of scale 100, 100, 100. It's not that bad, but the overall resolution, all these things we're going to talk about in greater detail next week. But for now, because I just want to just to create a new landscape, I'm just going to click Create. But there are some things we have to talk about here. So there's our new landscape. Yay! I want to switch out of, for now, I want to switch out of landscape mode into selection mode. And so we have this flat plane, okay, that we're using. One thing that we don't have here in our level, in our hierarchy, is one thing is our player start. Let's add the player start in. So we'll click onto that. So make sure the player is starting somewhere. Normally they start, you kind of put it at the 000 mark. You can probably put it there if you really want to. If you double click on the player, it'll kind of show it where it is. You want to kind of definitely lift it out of the ground. Okay. And now if we press play, we should be able to stand on this empty field. Okay. Yay. Right. And do the regular things we did before. We can't pick up a weapon because we don't have anything, but for now, everything should be working just like it did. Yay. Now, your task. Okay, and then I want to talk about some strategies here with you guys first. Who is going to use Blender to block stuff out? Who wants to use Blender to block things out? Maybe, right? It's not bad. You can totally do it. And you can also add basic shapes if you really want to. But there is a modeling mode that's built into Unreal Engine. And right in Unreal Engine, you can see that there's a bunch of stuff that you can use, right? So again, we can use things like cylinder and boxes and that kind of stuff to block the scene out. And I'd like you to start with this, if you can, okay? One thing that you can also do when you're blocking things out is you can use Boolean operations even inside of the modeling mode here as well, okay? So everything from I want to extrude a polygon, you can do that. You can add different things to make this, kind of the basic shapes. And this is what we want to capture here for today, all right? Some basic shapes for what we're going to do. Now, one thing to note is that because we started this project just now, I want to definitely go into project settings. And I definitely want to, change the, let's go back to that. Edit, editor preferences I meant, and change the default window to the main window. I don't like where it starts off. This should be kind of up here, because otherwise we're going to do that. I also want to lock the content drawer in my layout, because I'm going to be using that content drawer a lot. One thing that we're also going to be using this semester is Fab. All right, so if you click on the Fab button right here, then you're going to see Fab come up. I'm also going to pull that in as a tab here inside of my level, right, or just right here. Make sure when you're using Fab that you're logged in. Okay, so here you can see that I'm logged in to Fab. If you're not logged into Fab, then anything that you bought before or whatever will not be available. All right, so make sure you're kind of in there, right? So we're going to be using Fab. So content browsers, we're going to put a lot of our stuff. We have some blueprints, we have some things, and I want to save this preliminary map. So for now, I'm going to go File, and I'm going to save current level as. I'm going to put it inside of Maps, and let's call this level, we'll call it level 1. Okay, so this way we've saved the level, and we're good to go. So I want to pull down some references, and we have one reference right now. If I go back to the reference that I use, this one, okay? It may not be big enough, and we only have it from one perspective. So question for you guys, without any other training, should I have more references than this?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. How many is enough? Is it enough to do this? Like what do I guess?
I'd say about like at least 2 to 3 to get different angles.
2 to 3, what do you say, Griffin?
As many
As many
as possible.
as possible, Griffin says. It's always good to have as many as possible. What you really want to have is this. A 3/4 view would be nice, right? Like what we see here. This is not bad. Straight on would also be nice. Like so you can see from different angles, like, from the front, from the side. From the top would really be great. But I'm not sure you can get a, fly through from the top. We can look at Google Maps and all that stuff too. I doubt it that they'll have something so great, but there's a lot of references here if you take a look at the Temple of Poseidon Asunyo and of what this looks like. Okay, so if I was to search Google for this, let's do that together. This is also something we can do because this is live. So let's go to maps.google.ca and let's just pull down Temple of Poseidon, Asunyo, Greece. Right there it is. And you can see it's a very different landscape than when just looking at one thing at a time. And I want to see if we can drop, kind of down into one of these scenes here to give us a scene of what this thing looks like. So this is a much more interactive way of looking at it. Okay, definitely. Take a look at the scenery that we're having here, right? So if we're going to try and do this kind of stuff, right? Again, you can zoom in as well. You can change to as low as you can go. But the main thing is to kind of, if you can go into different locations. Some people have taken some great shots of the temple itself, and sometimes you can get some really great stuff. The problem with it is it's not a city, so you're not going to have the same control as you would if you were in Athens or if you were, in Toronto or whatever. So take a look at that And this is one of your little tests. So you can see the grounds, what it looks like. You can see the trail and how this looks like too. I don't care right now for you to create the actual landscape. That's another day. For today, I want you to look at the temple and I want you to try and create the columns, how they're arranged. And some of them also are lying down and a bunch of other stuff. Try and do it as much as possible. You may have to look at different kind of different positionings, here, because as you move through, there's some people have taken images, and there might be some great images of the temple from different views. Okay, so take a look at that. So this is a great way of doing it. You could do screen captures if you want to do it this way as well, and you can also look at another good resource. If you look here, if I just type in Temple of Poseidon Asunyo, and if you go to images, there's some great images here too that you can actually, some good stills that people have created over the years, and they can give you some examples of information that you want to use to create your temple. So one thing you could do, we know we need columns, and we don't care about detail right now. So if we're going to use this, I'm just going to just click on this one here. I don't care. And I'm just going to zoom in as much as possible. Let's see if I can actually, my zoom controls actually work. They do not on this computer. But we can zoom in as much as we can to this thing here. And this is not terrible, right? But we can see a couple things. Eventually, what I want to capture as much as possible is those details, right? The details that we have in the temple. And there's some stairs too. We're looking like there's some stairs, there's some debris that we're seeing here. I don't care so much about all the modern stuff they've put into place, like for example, all the cables and the fences and stuff. I don't care about that, okay? But this is not a bad view, and you can see other views like this. Take a look. There might be a great view from the side, a great view from the front, and even views from the top. And I want you to start blocking it out. So how do we block it out? Let's go back to the engine. So one thing, like I said, is if you go here and if you switch modes to modeling mode, you could block it out through modeling mode. So for example, I want to pull in a cylinder, as an example, if I just click on cylinder, I can pull one in, right? You don't have to use the extra content as an example. And once you've pulled in a cylinder, then you can modify it and whatever. We can just also accept. When you do, one thing to note is it says auto gen folder is where it's going to go, and what you can decide is where it's going to go. For example, current folder. So that if I make a folder for myself, like for example, things like models or meshes, let's do that. Let's make a new folder, and we'll call this folder meshes, right? That's really what it is. So in this folder, if I select current folder here in my modeling mode, this is where this is going to go when I click accept. If I click accept, now you can see inside my meshes folder, I've got a cylinder. And then I can use many of these. I can modify these cylinders like I normally would. All right, so that's definitely one way of doing it. I probably also need some boxes as well. So I'm going to kind of click on a box and pull that in, and then click accept there too. Remember, you can modify these things just like you normally would before. All right, so now I have those two things. They're pretty good. Remember also that you can do things like if I want to carve something out of a box, I can do a Boolean operation. I can kind of click this one and kind of put it inside the other one. Let's just fly through here. So how do I do that? How do I create a Boolean operation here? Well, on the left, you can see that there's the transform menu here as one thing. There's a bunch of menus here. So there's the create menu, which we had. There's the deform menu, which we had there as well. We had the deform, and there's a model menu as an example. So poly cut, right? Plane cut. All these things subdivide. There's the mesh menu. Each one of these things has a bunch of things that we can do. So there's, if you want to connect things, you can use a union, and there's a bunch of other ones here as well. You can also do other operations as well. So take a look. It's not just the create menu. Some people are like, this thing can't do anything. Yeah, I can. So take a look at these things and see if I was going to do something like, deform these things as an example, and I wanted to cut this out, which one would I do? You know, as an example, the plane cut does one thing, but notice the Boolean, you need to have both models selected. So there's a primary and secondary model. So you have to say, okay, so let's suppose the primary is the cylinder, right? Then if I kind of click this one, once you click both together, then you can go Boolean, and there's different operations you can do, right? As an example, I can do a difference A minus B. So you can see that this is what's happening. The cube will disappear, and the cylinder will be cut. So if I did that, if I clicked accept, you can see here that the cube has been cut out of the cylinder. All right, and you can do it the other way around as well. So if I undo, right, as an example, and if I do Boolean, you can also choose B minus A, right, where the cylinder is cut out of the cube. If I click accept, then you can see that the cylinder now is cut out of the cube, so you can make more complex shapes, right, by using Boolean operations really quickly. And again, this is just like it would be in Blender, but what we want to do here is quickly iterate. I don't want you to focus on one thing necessarily, and I want you to try and block out the scene, block out that temple to make it look like, how it looks in your reference, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording now, and I'm going to come around, and I want to see you do it, okay? And I'm going to give you tips on how to do that as well.